will the present format of ebook will remain solid, or will there be another format? It seems to me, and a lot of people we had discussion with, that we are in this kind of holding zone right now.
Certainly every experience I've had of building more interactive versions, they've all failed in a spectacular way. We build these things, and in some cases we had a sort of more static, traditional formats alongside, which have sometimes worked extremely well. And then, maybe there is a format out there that will be, sort of offer something that people will actually want to pay for. But who's going to come up with it? And the investment required will be enormous.
When we tried to look at developing workflows and looking at different solutions for publishers, one of the biggest things came back was that the PDF is still really, really, really strong, particularly in journals, which you wouldn't have. It's one area you wouldn't have expected to be strong.
I think people do still like to reprint, but I think the big problem for publishers now is that people get everything for free, or are used to getting things for free. So I think at one time, newspapers, everyone would buy a newspaper, and now they're happy to read the papers which are freely available, but they wouldn't buy one. They won't buy one anymore.
During the standard production process, what little tweaks can you do that aren't really going to cost much money that will enhance the ebook? TNF is a very big commercial publisher, and ebooks have higher profitability than print books. So there was an awful lot of pressure to move to get people to buy the ebook rather than the print book.
Here's what some of we got the key respondents says, that open access will expose our titles to a wider audience, but revenue is less predictable. Open access represents a possible loss of income, but also a chance for increased exposure. They could potentially change our business models. It'd be interesting to get people's views, and people agree or disagree with those statements on open access. My own opinion is that it's actually swung the other way in publishers' favour now, because people can see the possible destruction of content in terms of truths and non-truths. And it's an opportunity for publishers to really, strengthen their brand and realise that, again, you can see traditional news brands are probably in a stronger position than they have been, I think, because people can see the problems with, with other media that don't have credibility.
I think what's happening in journals is that there is so much pressure to publish that people will publish anywhere.
Okay.
So there's this thing called predatory journals around where they're not even real editorial boards, they're not even real editors, but people who publish them because they know they're going to get published. And so it's becoming a much bigger problem than it used to be, because anyone can start up their own journal now and say you'll get published very quickly. And so people submit and pay the money to publishers. So it's actually, I would argue, it's actually entirely opposite of what you suggested. It's actually much more of a problem.
From the book publisher's perspective, has there been much development in terms of open access and discussion about that?
There's a lot of concerns that I've heard come from people from more junior academics in fields that may not actually attract a great deal of funding. So those authors who just finished their PhD, trying to put together their first book, but they work in maybe the social sciences, and they're being told that for, say, the ref, their book needs to be open access. They bring it to the publisher says, well, we're going to be charging you 9-10 grand off your book. They're not going to have the funding, they're not going to have the backup of their department necessarily, particularly if they're just starting out. So in a way, you're then closing off an avenue of publishing for the next generation of academics.
Well, let's become the open access publisher of choice rather than, it's like on a menu where you've got your gluten-free option just down the bottom. You want it right up the top, so that it was seen as an excellent opportunity, both as a money-making but promotional as well.
I guess what's clear that at some stage open access itself, particularly in publicly funded research publications, will definitely ultimately play a significant role in academic publishing. And as we just discussed there as well, ultimately the opportunities and threats will vary between publishers, and depending on what type of content is produced. With that concern about offshoring work, the biggest concerns are quality copy editing, consistency of quality and communication. But I know there would be difference of opinion. I would imagine difference of opinion around the room. It would be very, very interesting to get people's thoughts.
I think what's probably an issue with that too is that the people that are now checking the copy editing aren't experienced copy editors.
When I first started in publishing as a desk editor, it was pretty much compulsory to do your 2-day copy editing course before we could start working on typeset books, so that we would understand what we were seeing back from the copy editor. But now we do tend to send people on the project management course instead.
Well, my expert base isn't in India. My expert base is in the UK. I don't offshore anything editorial at all. It all stays in the UK. I only offshore the kind of more mechanical things that can be done on a process sort of system.
I find that we've never offshored any copy editing work. We've only ever offshored a little bit of typesetting just for our journals, but never for our books. We do have a big pool of freelancers and some subject specialists in law and economics, for example. But I am finding it's taking longer and longer.
So with eBooks, obviously we do have the luxury of being a large-scale publisher, so we can afford to take some risks on some things if you view it as a risk. But yes, we are doing a large-scale project into offshore project management, also offshore copy editing at the moment, but also looking into AI, which I guess we'll talk more about in a bit. But working with journals on the contextualised copy edits as well and seeing what's available for books, and offshoring for us is working in the trial phases at the moment, particularly with the project management, and the copy editing is just a little bit more, we're going a little bit more cautiously there.
I first started working with offshore project managers about 10 years ago as part of a TNF working group looking to offshore for project management and journals, and really where it is now compared to what it was then. I mean, they are worlds apart. They're while not trying to play down some of the findings of the report. I think some of the elements might be kind of a bit subjective. You have like one bad, an author if they've had one bad experience with an offshore project manager will rail against any further books going down that line. I think things have massively changed at the moment, very much for the better. So as you say, I think more knowledge about getting the structures in place to kind of monitor QA and the quality of the outputs seem to be put in place after, from when they really first started to be taken up by publishers. So.
Does anyone would see suppliers as functional, or does that work, or does it need to work in a partnership model?
First, that's what we're really interested in, is looking for those kind of efficiencies, but also using the supplier for what they're good at, where their area of expertise are. That's not our core business, and that's really worked really well for us. Even though they're shorter term relationships.
I think a relationship only really earns the partnership label if both sides are really engaging with the problems that you're trying to solve. And that, in my experience, is actually quite rare. We had an experience recently where we did have one of those, where we had come up with a sort of plan, and we think this is what we need, and the response was, actually don't do it that way. This will store our problems for later. And I was really pleased to hear that.
I think the fact that you're not the only supplier, but other suppliers are increasingly using tools like Randstad and things like that. So in some ways, companies are becoming more embedded. That I think that will change the relationship between publishers and suppliers, and you kind of more embedded, and also you will be kind of customizing tools for specific customers as well.
So I suppose it'd be great to get an honest opinion on where people see AI is and what it can do, and I suppose to think if the results of that survey are representative in terms of your own organisation and how you've developed your relationships and your own AI tools and workflows with your suppliers and internally.
And the latest samples that we've had, it's not good enough to use for copy editing yet. It's getting there because they've still got to feed in tens of thousands more manuscripts, but it's good enough to assess the level of writing for manuscripts. So that means that where you've got a journal coming in, instead of paying a lot of money on the copy editing for every single paper, you can just reroute it through so that it can go straight through. And so if it's, as you say, why spend a lot of money on copy editing if a paper's been really well written? But where we're getting a lot more manuscripts through from countries where the first language isn't English, such as the Chinese, then they need a lot more attention. So it's gradual, cautious rollout. So we'll see what problems we get with just plain text, and then see where we are in September. But it's all about enhancing the experience for the author as well as speed and quality. That's important to us as well. it's the author experience, and giving them options to say, yes, you can make your own corrections in the XML if you want to, but you don't have to.
AI is everywhere, and don't be getting so carried away with the highest element can go. If you introduce it realistically and honestly in your processes, well then there's so much you can do without getting to the highest level, like, you know. So that's what we're looking at too, is aiding our copy editors, aiding our language editors to make the right decisions.
I think we would like to start by cleaning up the references so that the copy editor spends less time on them. You know,
been doing that for a few years. So the copy editors, and papers are structured, so they just do language editing.
And has it helped reduce your copy editing cost?
Oh, yes, it actually it's improved. As Darren was saying, it's actually made it so that the references are more complete and consistent, and then the copy editors spend less time editing the papers.
Our experience is probably a bit more mixed than yours. Our suppliers already use tools to do the structuring. I wouldn't call them AI tools. So we've looked at several different tools that exist, and we've had a go at developing some of our own as well with our data science team, but they haven't been good enough to actually put into practice at the moment. But theoretically, being able to use them to decide how much of editing input is required, or possibly after a paper has been edited to replace the QC steps that we use.
But I also think outside of that, just looking away from the supplier element, the AI development of the workflows, and you mentioned pre-edit, will enable a certain automation and speed in terms of ingestion of content from authors and contributors at books and journals, to allow that to move into publishers' environments quicker, even without suppliers. You know, just to kind of summarise on that then, you know, there's definitely, there's no getting away from the fact that, you know, across industries AI is huge, and data science is huge, and it will, and I think I'll watch the next couple of years, and it's inevitable the influence it's going to have.